It's the Vancouver Hockey Show. Andrew Wadden alongside producer Aaron. Another edition of the VHS, Aaron. And if I sound a little bitchy off the start here, I do apologize.
Oh.
Because I just had a 6-leg parlay fall apart in the dying seconds of the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Commanders game. So,
well, I don't want to reveal all your betting habits, but I think you got a little greedy today because you did so well yesterday, right?
Yeah,
so,
I did. I was, I put some money in my jeans yesterday, but yeah, 6-leg parlay that fell apart. Tiniest violin in the world playing right now just for me. So I won't bore the listener with this anymore. The Canucks, well, they're not boring this year. We know that.
No.
And a bit of a short week for us because we didn't have our regular Monday release last week. We're back on schedule now, though.
And it's a hell of a schedule coming up.
It is. They're in the midst of this 7-game road trip right now, 1-1 since we last spoke to the audience here. They had the 2-1 loss in St. Louis and then the 6-4 wild victory against the New Jersey Devils. Let's wheel it back just a little bit, though, and go back to St. Louis there in a game that we saw Andrei Kuzmenko be another healthy scratch. And we're definitely going to dive into that in just a moment. But Aaron, that game, it started off well for the Canucks. They scored
promising.
2 minutes. 2 minutes into the game, Connor Garland getting another goal. And of course, we've talked about that third line and how they seem to have found something there with Bluger and Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland. But then after that, 2-1 score, but could have been worse. Demko was decent. Demko's always been good. It just seems like he doesn't have an off night. But one of those games that definitely wasn't a Picasso from either side, but St. Louis ends up taking 2 points. Let's just talk about the Kuzmenko healthy scratch there for just a moment. I want to unpack this a little bit further, so we will go through the Jersey game first, but I don't understand why Andrei Kuzmenko is the guy coming out and Linus Karlsson's the guy coming in.
Yeah.
And Linus Karlsson was fine in that game, actually. You dig into the analytics, they were actually quite leaning towards him, but he was also the low man in terms of time on ice. He played 9 minutes and change in the game. And we've seen from Linus Karlsson in his time in the NHL that he just looks like a depth player. He looks like what we call the quad A player, right? The AHL call up doesn't seem to find his foot or hasn't seemed to be able to find his footing in the NHL. And to me, that's your better option over Andrei Kuzmenko. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with it. And if it's just another message sending that's happening right now for Rick Tocchet to Andrei Kuzmenko, at some point, the message has got to get delivered. And if it's not, they're going to have to make a decision. Again, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that in just a moment, but I just didn't get the Linus Karlsson in over Andrei Kuzmenko.
I just don't get Kuzmenko in general. It's like, how many times has this been now this season?
Well, that's my point.
Yep.
And and again,
we'll get into it, but it's like, really, again, I didn't think he was terrible in Ottawa. In the Ottawa game.
To be honest with you, Aaron, look at the numbers throughout the season. They're not terrible. Let's just get through the Jersey game here first, and then we'll get into Kuzi a bit more. A 6-4 win in New Jersey, and these are rare victories for the Canucks when it comes to getting victories in the swamp. There was no Jack Hughes, so it wasn't the full Hughes Bowl, which is unfortunate. Carson Soucy returned to the lineup. He was out since, mid-November. Nikita Zadorov out, though, right now. Doesn't seem like it's going to be anything too serious, but the Canucks blue line a little bit banged up at the moment. Good thing seeing Soucy come back. Kuzmenko gets back into the lineup, plays just under 15 minutes. He's a -1 in the game, 6 shots on goal. I thought Kuzi was fine. I really like the fact that the Lotto line got reunited. And I know our boy Drancer was taking some heat because he wanted to call it the Kirkland signature version of the Lotto line because it had Petey on the wing as opposed to in the middle in this one. But hey, they combined for 4 goals, 8 points. They were cooking last night. And, it might be something that you might want to flirt with here and there because of the fact that, you want to spread out that scoring. We have seen some secondary scoring from the Canucks, especially with that third line. We've seen some spurts when it comes to individual players, like Sam Lafferty had a little bit of a spurt there, whether it's Pia Suter, finding a little bit of a spurt as well. But for one night only, or if it's maybe for, break glass in emergency, I thought the Lotto line was pretty damn good last night.
Hey, I don't have a problem with mixing the lines up, but just don't touch that third line at the moment, man.
Yeah.
Everybody else, let's try it out. But the third line's working, man.
And it's funny too, because Talkett was talking about that when it comes to Connor Garland and the fact that when he has a defined role and it's not really outside of his boundaries, if you will, if he's not extending himself too much, like he's a very, very effective player. And we're finding that right now with the chemistry that he's got with Dakota Joshua and Teddy Bluger. Dakota Joshua just looks like he's taken a step this year in terms of, he's heavy on the puck. The confidence level is definitely there now.
Extra can of spinach.
Yeah, exactly. And could be contract year as well. I mean, these are he's the type of player who hasn't really, fully established himself in the NHL in terms of somebody wanting to give him term and money, right?
But he seems like he's trying to make that mark now this season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, we've talked about, the good problems, if your players are playing better than, what you expected, or perhaps what, maybe their contract stipulates in terms of how much money they're making, that's a good problem. And Dakota Joshua right now, 19 points on the season, 10 goals for the Canucks. So good problem for the Canucks to have, deal with the contract in the offseason. If Dakota Joshua walks in the offseason, he walks in the offseason. I mean, we can't be concerned about that on January 7th of this season, right?
But we'll say in that Jersey game, very, very, very silly penalty from Joshua, though. But he got the empty netter, so,
Yeah, you're right about that.
Nothing happened. It got very dangerous at the end of the game there.
Well, it could have been even worse, too. The Luke Hughes, although he, was shot out of a cannon on the trip, and did the, triple axel or whatever it is.
Last minute nomination for the Golden Globes. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was a trip. I think the Canucks got very lucky on that play. It should have been a 5-on-3. Could have been a different outcome in the end. Maybe perhaps send it to overtime. But
I don't want to entirely say that he embellished it, but if you look at that,
he did.
but if you look at that replay, you see the ref in the back, and it looks like he's about to raise his hand, but then he stopped for a beat, and he's like, there was a little bit too much there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it to you. As where if he would have just fallen over and left the theatrics out of it, I think he would have gotten the call.
More spins than Mark McMorris.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, too, it's one of the things that bothers me. And maybe you're right. I don't know if I quite saw it the same way that you did. I'd be honest with you, I wasn't really staring at the referee right away. But that kind of stuff bothers me about the NHL, though. And if that was the case, that he thought maybe embellished it a little too much and that, it would equal itself out, but it's a blatant trip. And if you're the New Jersey Devils, that gives you an opportunity.
Everybody in there wanted it.
Tie it up. I mean, also too, look where the Devils are in the standings right now. I'm not here to fight for the New Jersey Devils. I'm just saying stuff like that kind of bothers me sometimes in the NHL, because at times they'll swallow the whistle because the team's already on the power play. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. Call it. But regardless, Canucks come through with the victory. Check this out for a stat now. They're 22-0 when leading after 40 minutes this year. That's unreal. That is unbelievable of a stat. And people talk about the PDO, and there's there's a lot of luck involved with that as well, to go 22-0 after 40 minutes. And again, maybe plays like last night, missing that trip call, maybe that ties into that. But hey, that's the stat that the Canucks have right now, and they definitely can hang their hat on that moving forward. Let's dig into Kuzmenko a little bit, because I've been sitting here wondering, what the hell is the plan for Kuzmenko? And, here's a guy, came into the league. Yes, he was in his late 20s. He's not necessarily your quote unquote rookie last year, but his first year in the NHL, the guy put up 39 goals. There is no disputing that fact. There's also no disputing the fact that when he's on the ice, the analytics are decent. At 5-on-5, he's not getting outscored on the ice. It's 23-21 goals for versus goals against. He's got 54% of the scoring chances when he's on the ice at 5-on-5. And also 54% of the high danger chances. These analytics are not screaming that this guy isn't doing his part. Now, again, there are different ways of being able to tell, if somebody is buying or not, playing into your system. And I'm sure Rick Tocchet could point out many things to me right now. But just when I look at Kuzi on the ice, I don't see him being, a detriment as much as maybe say the guys that are replacing him. Mm-hmm. Now, Dollywall's reporting that teams are calling about him, and I figured they would be, but also too, have you now suppressed the asset? Are there sharks sort of circling because there's blood now in the water, right? what kind of asset is Kuzi at this point? Dan Milstein's his agent. And of course, Dan Milstein has a fantastic relationship with the Vancouver Canucks, but he's saying that they want to make it work with Vancouver. Kuzi's saying all the right things. The Canucks are leading the league in goals for. So there's some that are saying, oh, they need to improve the top six, but Aaron, they lead the league in goals for. Mm-hmm. Scoring's not a problem for them right now.
No.
Nor is pucks going in the net. They have I believe it's the fourth lowest goals against. Yeah. They're 29th in the league in goals against at 2.59. Only Florida, LA, and Winnipeg have less goals scored against this year. So I don't get why people are suggesting that they need to improve right now in the top six when maybe that improvement is in your roster right now in Andrei Kuzmenko, right?
Yeah. If you were to look up dead weight in the dictionary, you wouldn't, there's the little rose colored glasses because, Canucks are doing so well, but I can't think of a single player, especially can't think of Kuzmenko being the photo next to the word dead weight,
Not right now. No, I don't really think there's many guys that would show up in that photo on the Vancouver Canucks right now. Yeah. We're getting nitpicky. Right? You lead in the league. Again, I'm going to go back to it. They lead the league in goals for. They almost average 4 goals a game. It's 3.82. And this is without Kuzmenko scoring right now. It's a little baffling. And, you see some of the names, and I know Drance and Dollywall did a great piece on The Athletic. And, when they do those combination pieces where they both sort of dive into their sources, they're always great reads and always great information. Those guys, they know what they're doing. They know they're talking to the right people. Names like Jake Gensel comes up and, some people might roll their eyes. Oh, another Pittsburgh Penguin. Yeah. But if you're Rutherveen, these players. So deal with the devil, right? Mm-hmm. And Jake Gensel's a fine player. 29 years old. He's a UFA at the end of the year. There's a couple of issues with this right now. One being that he has a $6 million contract. So are you going to go dollar in, dollar out at that point? And then as you sort of look at the assets, is that Andrei Kuzmenko? Now, if that is the case, because they're pretty similar in age, I believe Kuzmenko might be about a year younger than Gensel without looking it up. I'm sure I could just do that. But I know that Gensel's 29. Kuzmenko's somewhere like 28, something like that. But the point is this, is that Kuzmenko's got a $5.5 million contract. He's got one more year left on it. So do the Penguins, are they interested in Kuzmenko for one thing? Or are the Penguins even thinking about moving Jake Gensel? Let's keep in mind, the Penguins are an old core. They just locked up Letang and Malkin to term. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon, those guys. And with Gensel being 29, if you're signing Malkin in his late 30s, Letang in his late 30s, why wouldn't you sign Gensel as well? So there is that. But I also look in terms of the defense because, like I said, this is a team that has no problem scoring. They're leading the league in it, said for the 10th time already. But you're starting to see the defense sort of get battered a little bit. Zadorov's now out. Now, they're not expecting it to be anything big. But I'm wondering if you are going to dangle some sort of asset and are going to, take on some salary, maybe that's Chris Tanev. Maybe that should be your focus. Now, the Flames are weird right now. As we record this, they just lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. Not good. The Flames are in that mushy middle and trying to figure out exactly what they're going to be this year.
And we should also say very depleted Chicago Blackhawks at the moment too. Tons of guys out.
That is true. That's a bad loss for the Flames. A really bad loss. But you got assets like Tanev, Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm would be a fantastic pickup for somebody. Hanifin, perhaps. Hanifin would be great, but let's deal in reality right now. And the reality is that Chris Tanev could be somebody that the Canucks could take on. Now, obviously, Chris Tanev knows this city very well, knows this organization very well. But when you look at sort of how you want to build out your team going into the playoffs, I think you really want to weaponize that back end, right? Have some depth there. Have 7 solid NHL defensemen. As we saw, Soucy missed some time now. Zadorov is now out. Tyler Myers he's getting longer in the tooth. I saw our buddy Jeff Patterson writing about how, perhaps using some sort of load management with the defense might be something the Canucks could do. Well, you could do that if you brought in someone like Chris Tanev as well. Now, they've had some good results with Noah Juleson this year. And again, guys sort of exceeding what you thought they would be. So that's again, the good problem to have. But if there is a trade, I guess this is, to bring it sort of full circle here with Kuzmenko, if there is some sort of trade where you are dangling a piece like Kuzmenko, does it make more sense to go for, offensive type player, top 6 type player in Gensel, or to perhaps weaponize and build out that back end for a deeper playoff run? Me, I think I would go blue line.
Yep. Blue line for me, blue line all the way. I mean, that's the weakest point at the moment. Everybody up front, they're all doing their thing. They got it together. You got Demko and DeSmith, who's really stepped up. And so you're good there, but it's right there on the blue line.
Aaron, I
get a little concerned with how much ice time Hughes has at the moment now. Yeah. And we're not even at the All-Star break, right?
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
And also too, we've also seen Phil Hronek was bat out of hell to start the season.
Yeah.
He's come down now in points, right? So starting to see him regress a little bit. And we knew that was going to happen. Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes. He's on another planet. There's only 2 or 3 guys in the league that, play the position like Quinn Hughes does, right? So he's on his own island at this point. But you're right. They're going to want to make sure that, that blue line is solid going into the postseason, because again, like I said, they're scoring goals. They don't have a problem scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they don't have a problem keeping them out of their net.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the key, right? They want to make sure that they can maintain that. So I was thinking about this then as well. Kuzmenko obviously is an asset for the Canucks. But the problem with Kuzmenko is the fact that he's got, dollar signs, right? He's $5.5 million. So let's get into the next layer of assets. And these are the youngsters, Nils Höglander, Vasily Podkolzin. Do they dare think about Jonathan Lekkerimäki, especially after the World Junior tournament that he just had?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, MVP of the World Juniors. And, unfortunately, Sweden came short when it came to the gold medal game. But, I mean, me, and we've said it many times, prospects are whatever to me. I love seeing them when they get to the NHL. But something like that definitely makes me excited. Watching a player like that, watching that shot that he has that I did not know about. I get to see these guys a handful of times. Most of the time it's during the World Juniors. Tom Willander, there's another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, if I'm Rutherford, don't even ask me about those 2 Swedes. Just off limits, not happening.
Yep.
Could we dig even deeper though? Atu Ratu. Taking a look at him in Abbotsford this year. Remember him, by the way?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Over on that bow deal, Yep.
Again, but it's almost oh yeah, shoot. Yeah, I forgot about him. But as I dig up his stats here in Abbotsford this year, 21 points, 30 games. It's okay, right? But this is a 2021 draft. So, these are the years. When you're looking at draft +2, +3, these are the years that you want to see guys turn the corner. So, what sort of asset is he even at this point for the Vancouver Canucks? Then there's that first round pick for this year. And the way the Canucks are playing this year, I think it's in play. In years past, and although they did some very creative stuff in terms of, what they did with the draft pick that they got in the Bo Horvat deal, able to flip it, make it into Hronek, and, they did some good things with that. But in years past, the Canucks have been, what's the right word? Just basically loose when it came to their draft picks, right? You don't want to be not in your contending window and trading out draft picks, which is essentially what they're doing. We all know the mistakes of the past. No need to go back on them. But this year, this seems like the kind of first round pick that could definitely be in play. Now, if it was today, it'd be the 29th overall pick. So I had to go back and just sort of take a look at some 29th overall picks. And I only went back as far as the year 2000. We don't want to be digging into the 90s and 80s and whatnot. But since the year 2000, there's 3 names that have jumped out to me. Nicholas Cromwell, fantastic defenseman, shutdown D, Detroit Red Wings, Stanley Cup winner. Mike Green, fantastic offensive defenseman. He was on that Capitals team when they won the Cup. And Adrian Kempe. Those are the best 29th overall picks. So that's 23 years, and I picked out 3 guys that are...
Yeah.
The Canucks had the 29th overall pick in 2011. They used it on Nicholas Jensen, and we all know how that worked out. It didn't, right? So point is this, like, you don't, 29th overall picks are a bit of a crapshoot to begin with. The odds are that you might get a good NHL player, but the odds are you'll probably just get an NHL player. So when you're in this sort of window right now that the Canucks are in, I definitely think that first round pick would be in play this year. But again, what is it going to be for? Like, what are the Canucks looking to do here? I'm sure they would love to get somebody to help improve the top six. I'm sure they would love to get somebody to help the defense. If I am putting all my chips on the table, though, and I want one player, to me, it's Chris Tanev, 100%.
I'm just saying anything to support the defense at the moment, because I like everybody up front. Yeah, just it is puzzling to me, the whole situation with Kuzmenko, because I don't think he's been bad.
I thought, Aaron, I wanted to try to find something today that showed me that he's bad, and I can't find it right now. Like, I can't. And, you know, I'm not watching tape with Rick Tocchet and Adam Foots or Greg Gonchar. I'm like, yo, those guys, like, I'm not there. So I'm sure they could probably point out a bunch of stuff. But to me,
is there room for improvement? Always, always room for improvement. Yeah.
But also too, where's the improvement on the offensive side? Is there room for that? Because I know we all focus on the defensive side and sort of lack thereof, but this is a guy that scored 39 goals. And I think he's on pace for something like 40 points in total this season. Not good. All right. Elias Pettersson's next contract. This has just been crossing my mind a lot lately. And I know that PD's camp is, you know, sort of pump the brakes. They're not saying a whole lot at the moment. I started thinking about really what Pettersson's camp would be looking for. And I've kind of broke it down into 3 different tiers. Either a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal, or an 8-year deal. I think those are your options right now if you're Pettersson's camp. Now, the 8-year deal is, I'm sure, something that the Vancouver Canucks would absolutely love, right? But when you're talking about an 8-year deal, we're not talking about $11 million at that point, like per season. We're not talking about $12 million per season. Like, you're starting at 13 if you're getting into the 8-year range, that is. Because just look at the way the cap is going. In the next 2 years alone, the cap is expected to rise somewhere around 9%. So if you're going to be investing in someone, you know, for 8 years, if it's going up 9% in 2 years, where's it going to be in 8 years from now? Right? So an $11 million contract, though, I'm sure the Canucks would love that, you know, $88 million. I'm sure that Canuck fans would love that. Canucks would love that. I don't know if Elias Pettersson's camp's going to love that. Because let's keep in mind, he turns 20, his birthday's in November. He'll be 26 next year when the first year of this new contract kicks in. So even if he takes a 4-year deal, like, he's looking at starting a new contract at 30. If he takes a 3-year deal, 29, like, these are the types of things that savvy players like Austin Matthews has done. Austin Matthews' first contract, 5 years, second contract, 4 years. He's going to maximize his third contract, hit a home run, and which probably will be his last one at that point, on an 8-year deal. Tons of risk involved in that. Obviously, you're leaving millions of dollars on the table. You could injure yourself. There's no guarantees. But when you're someone like Elias Pettersson and you sort of hold the hammer the way that he does on the Canucks right now, you know, there's some that are saying the Canucks are like, hey, it's a blank sheet. Just tell you where to sign. I don't think it's that simple in terms of, well, we only want 3 years, though. I think that's when the Canucks sort of do some hesitance. Now, don't get me wrong. The Canucks, and barring Petey saying, I don't want to sign here again, there will be a deal that gets hashed out between these two. But I'm very curious to see what this term length is going to be. And I would be more surprised if he signs for 8 years than I would for 3 or 4. Let's see if Pettersson takes the route of Matthews and sort of maximizes his earning potential during his time in the NHL. Lastly, looking forward here, Aaron, 5 more games left on the road trip, 5 games in 7 nights for the Canucks coming up here. So one of the most difficult stretches that they will have, back-to-backs. That would be the Rangers night. Then they follow it up with the Islanders. That's game 41 of the season. So that's the halfway point when they go into Long Island to face off against the Islanders and their old captain, Bo Horvat. 26 games now until the trade deadline, Aaron. So all that trade talk that we talked about there, something to keep in mind. I think I'm going to have my eyes on the Calgary Flames, just in terms of, where do they go in the next little while? Because they are a team that have a bunch of assets that could change the trajectory of some teams going into the playoffs. Whether it's Lindholm, Hanifin, Tanev, maybe they'd even dangle Jacob Markstrom. I don't think that. Actually, I know for the fact the Canucks would not be looking at Jacob Markstrom, but he could end up elsewhere and he could potentially be a problem coming in the playoffs. So who knows what Calgary's going to do, but they're somebody that I definitely got my eye on. Money Puck has the Canucks with the fourth best odds to make the playoffs, 97.8% right now. So for those people that, and I've seen some of it, I've seen some stuff on Reddit, some people, I'm hesitant. No, I don't know. It's no guarantees that the Canucks. Listen, they're making the playoffs. They would, in a league that hands out a point for losing in overtime or a shootout, it's so hard to climb the ladder. Look at the Edmonton Oilers right now. What have they won? 7 in a row? Yeah, they've won 7 in a row, and they just finally got above the playoff bar. And they've had to do a couple of these stretches right now. So again, it's really hard for teams to jostle up and down, especially when the Canucks, their longest losing streak's been 2 games all season. So I think there's some hesitance with the Canuck fan base right now. It's almost like they, have been scorned too much before, or perhaps, this new reality just hasn't sort of set in, but let it set in because they're making the playoffs.
Come on in. The water's fine.
It is. It's nice and warm. I do have to apologize to Jets fans because I think on last week's pod, I don't think I gave the Jets their due. And, as we record this today, they lead the league in points now. They're tied with New York and Boston. But if you want to look at points percentage, they also lead in that. They're tied with New York and Boston. They're playing 711 points percentage, 711 in terms of their points percentage right now. So they're getting 71% of the points that are available to them. That's massive. So with all due respect, I'm sorry, Jet fans. I said the Canucks were Canada's best shot at winning the Stanley Cup. Still kind of believe it, but I do know that the Jets, when you got a goalie like Hellebuck, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the Canucks with Demko, it's a bit of a trump card. By the way, the Jets 8-0-2 in their last 10. As we record this right now, they're winners of 5 in a row. So
34 on the differential there too. So Canucks at 47. So
yeah, you go. Yeah. The one thing about the goal differential, and yeah, I know these games did happen, but they got a little inflated with the early season whoopings of the Edmonton Oilers and the San Jose Sharks. But hey, they played those games. They did happen. Just saying, keep that in mind. All right, guys, big week ahead for the Canucks. As mentioned, 5 games, 7 nights. So we'll be on top of all of that. Head over to sportshouse.ca. It's HAUS. All of our stuff is on there. Everywhere you can follow us on the social media platforms, all on Sports House. All right, for producer Aaron, I'm Andrew Wadden. It's another edition of the VHS. Have a great week, everyone.